All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well, keeping safe. My name is Marco Lopez. I'm here with Paul Trudeau, and I'll let him introduce himself first. We're going to have a pretty good webinar where we're going to go over all of the new announcements that we had from .next 2020, which happened last month. So with that being said, I'll let Paul kick it off.
Awesome. Thank you, Marco. And thanks everybody for joining today. So I'll give you just a couple of quick minutes on Winslow and who we are and how we relate to Nutanix. And then I'll turn it over to Marco, who's going to talk a little bit about himself and also about some of the key takeaways from .next, which is Nutanix's annual conference. And then we'll open it up to some Q&A. So next slide, Marco. All right. So Winslow Technology Group, for anyone who is not familiar, we are an IT solutions provider headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts, with satellite offices in New York City and Charlotte, North Carolina. And Winslow has expertise in everything from the desktop to the data center to the cloud. And we like to ensure that the data is secure wherever it resides. So in general, Winslow is a very engineering heavy organization. Over a third of our team are engineers, and each are averaging 20+ years of experience in IT. Couple that with our commitment to optimal customer outcome, and we've got 650 customers and counting who can vouch for our expertise and our history of delivering success. As it relates to our partnership with Nutanix, I'm proud to say that we were an early adopter. So we've been partnered with Nutanix for about 6 years now, started back in 2014. Since then, we've delivered a plethora of hyperconverged and enterprise cloud solutions to our customers. And across our entire portfolio, Nutanix consistently ranks among the top in terms of customer satisfaction. Due to how strategic Nutanix is to our customers and thus our company, we've built an incredibly strong practice around the technology. We've got a host of certifications, which you can read through. We have up on the screen. We're actually the highest level partner with Nutanix. So that's the cloud champion partner. And we've built a really strong set of capabilities, both in the pre-sales side of the house. So that's kind of more like the architecture and design, as well as in the post-sales side of the house. So health checks, data migrations, training, you name it. So, I want to save the bulk of the time today for Marco and kind of the technical updates. So that's all I've got on Winslow. We're really excited about Nutanix as a technology and the partnership. Proud to have been carrying that flag for 6 years now, and excited to hear what Marco has in store for us today. Thanks, awesome. Marco. Over to you.
Thanks, Paul. And I just want to say thanks to Winslow as well for sponsoring this today, right? And always been a good partner. Always very happy to work with them. So just quickly about me, just so you guys know who's actually talking to you, right? I'm New England based. I actually live in Connecticut. I have a wife and 2 kids, a small green-cheeked conure that hates my guts. He's always trying to bite me, and he's flying around the house with my wife, and he doesn't like me to get close to her. So I've been at Nutanix for about 3 years now. I've been in the industry 15, 16 years at this point. Like many of you on this call, right, I was a customer, right? I come from automotive distribution, to be honest with you. So, I was a sysadmin, sysengineer for many years, deploying virtualization, Windows servers, and Active Directory environments. After about 8, 9 years doing that, I kind of said, you know what, I want to try something different. And I ended up at a reseller, pretty much doing the same thing, but consulting customers and making sure that I wasn't just selling anything that the customer would want, but kind of be that value add and directing them and helping them get to the right solution to the problem that they might be having. While I was at a partner, I found Nutanix, right? And this is back in maybe 2014, 2013, maybe. So I just fell in love with the technology. And after a couple of years, I was able to actually apply for a job here. And the rest is history. I've been here 3 years. I absolutely love working here, and I think we have a tremendous product. I am fully bilingual, English, Spanish, so if you see me stutter or take a pause or whatnot, it's usually because I'm translating something in my head. I love all things that are Lord of the Rings based. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. I love cars and Lego, which you can see behind me. It's something that's pretty much a passion for me. But enough about me. You guys came to hear about Nutanix and .next. So .next is our annual user conference, right? And we do this typically in different areas of the United States every year. This year, due to COVID, unfortunately, we had to go virtual. We did it a bit different this year, where we actually made it a global .next instead of a regional one. But that being said, we had thousands of attendees come on live to watch our talks. We had dozens of different types of vendors that were coming in and just talking about their solutions as they related to Nutanix. So I'm just going to focus on really what our product has that's new and other stuff that might be coming down the pipe within the next 2 to 3 months. Now, many of you might already be customers, others might be prospects just looking at Nutanix, but we've grown a lot in the past 11 years that we've been in the market. So basically, when we started, we were this hyper-converged technology. We were very VDI intense. As the years went by, we started, I guess you could say, dipping our toes into other areas, right? And at this point, we are a true enterprise cloud, and we want to provide our customers with an entire ecosystem, right, where they can run not only their on-premise infrastructure, their private cloud, but also be able to manage those workloads both on-premise and in the cloud as well, using one platform instead of having to manage multiple different tools. So we're a complete ecosystem at this point. But that being said, we have our hyper-converged infrastructure, and this is kind of like the bread and the butter of Nutanix, right? This is what everybody talks about. It's, what are you guys doing for on-prem data centers and whatnot? Our system, we're based on a controller virtual machine that's running on each one of the nodes that are inside of a cluster. We call this controller virtual machine Acropolis operating system. So for our customers, what we've been doing for many years, right? As we add new features into Acropolis, we are making sure that customers are getting these new features without having to purchase a new license on top of the current license that they're having. So every time we implement some type of new technology, we're making sure that these performance benefits are getting to our customers. So at .next, we actually announced that we're going to start implementing something called SPDK. Now, SPDK is an open source technology developed by Intel, which basically helps us gain access to the hard disks not the hard disks, the SSDs within any of those nodes at a faster pace, right? So this is going to help us, not only with IOPS, with latency reduction. So if any of you guys are like very familiar with how storage performance works and whatnot, when we talk about NVMEs, when we start talking about 3D crosspoint and whatnot, a lot of the time it's going to be like, okay, there's going to be bottlenecks, whether this is going to be on the network layer, on CPU or whatnot. We're addressing this by actually implementing SPDK, which Intel developed, and it's already in the user space, just like our controller VM. And we're going to make sure that all of those performance enhancements that SPDK provides can be built right into our system, and customers, it's just at this point a feature, not an additional product that they have to purchase to be able to take advantage of it. And as usual, for everybody that's familiar with Nutanix, we like to talk about one click and how everything is very simple and very easy to utilize, right? So we are implementing different things to expand on that one click availability that we have. Foundation Central is something that we announced at .next, and it's basically an easier way where we can take any remote office or branch offices, right, that might be implementing Nutanix, not having to send out engineers out there and say, it's like, oh, okay, well, you're going to have to go and image all of these clusters that are on those remote sites. We built Foundation right into Prism Central, where you can say, it's like, look, we had somebody rack and stack these at the remote offices, but me as an administrator at the central office, all I have to do is point my Foundation Central to them, and I can image them directly from here. So it makes it a lot easier to do that instead of having to go to multiple sites to achieve this. We've continued to build up on our automation. So if you're familiar with Prism Central, we have an automation engine built into that where you can take events that are occurring within your cluster and actually put actions onto those events and say, it's like, look, I want if this event occurs, I need to, let's take a snapshot and back up this VM so that we can take an action to fix it, right? And we can automate all of this process. And we also announced another tier within Prism, right? So we have Prism Pro, and now we're going up to Prism Ultimate, where we're adding a bit more features into that, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So Nutanix Insights. So everyone is a customer of Nutanix. You may be familiar with what we call Pulse, which is basically a check mark within the system, and it's going to send some data back to our engineers in our support center. And basically, it's going to say, the health of your system, let's put it that way. And it'll give us some insights, and it'll give our system reliability engineers the ability to, see any problems that may be occurring with your clusters and take action, right? We might preemptively open up a ticket to help out, maybe with a hard disk failure or something that might be going on with the cluster. But in the past, it was basically kind of, we knew about it, but the customers were like, well, we don't know what the engineers are looking at on Nutanix's side. Here comes Nutanix Insights, right? So basically on our support portal, all of our customers are going to be able to log in, and they're going to actually be able to look at all of that data that our engineers are looking at and see how we're responding to it, and actually be able to open up tickets directly from there because of any type of problem that they're seeing within that dashboard. So we want to make this much easier for our customers as well, and make sure that they can see exactly the same things that we're seeing. LCM, so we typically had our one-click upgrades, which is basically you could pick our controller VM, our hypervisor, Nutanix files or whatnot, and you could with just one click and upgrade that one component. We built kind of a better system where we can say, it's like, look, with our lifecycle manager, we're going to look at the entire cluster, and we're going to say, okay, not only do you have to upgrade your hypervisor, but you have to also upgrade the BMC and the BIOS. You might have to upgrade one of our products like files or whatnot. LCM is going to have the intelligence to say, hey, you need to upgrade in this order because these files are not compatible with each other. These versions might not be compatible with each other. You're going to have a problem if the hypervisor is installed before AOS or whatnot. Typically, for all those IT admins that have been around for a while, you'd have to go to a guide on the vendor's website and say, it's like, look, okay, these are the steps that you have to go through. Step 1, check this, make sure it's this version. Step 2, do this other thing. LCM is going to take care of all of that for you, and it's going to make sure that it's done properly and in the order that it should be taken. Nutanix files. So at Nutanix, besides HCI, we've gone above and beyond. We also offer file and object storage as well. Our file storage specifically, right, this was still managed and maintained through the controller VM, whereas all of our other products are managed through Prism Central. This is something that we've decided, okay, it's time now to remove this from our controller VM and make sure that it's on that single pane of glass that we have in Prism Central for all of our other products. So that was the really big announcement from Nutanix Files this year. Was like, okay, we're finally migrating this to Prism Central. But on top of that, anybody that may be running Nutanix Files in their infrastructure currently might have known that from a replication standpoint, we've only been able to do asynchronous replication for about an hour IPO and whatnot. Now, we've actually implemented that synchronous replication, and we can get down to that 60-second RPO. So, that's a very good addition to that. But on top of that, we do have object storage as well. So what we did with Nutanix Files specifically is that we're making sure that not only that from a cluster perspective, where we'll take a hybrid cluster and say, okay, we want to tier that hot data that's on SSD down to cold data that's on spinning disk, we can actually take data that's colder, right? And we'll say, look, just move this to object storage, take it off of my cluster because it's stale, right? This hasn't been used in weeks or months or years or whatnot, and it's just taking up space. So now we can actually tier that off onto an object storage elsewhere. Ransomware protection. If you're familiar, again, with files, we have files analytics, which basically will allow users to, check what type of utilization is happening within their file server. So if there's, users that are accessing a file that they shouldn't be accessing, if there are users that are mass deleting files or whatnot, Files Analytics will pick all of that up and will start alerting you. It gives you a dashboard to view what's going on. We're actually going to add in ransomware protection into that. So we're going to build a small database of known ransomware, right, that can be updated individually from files, right? You won't have to update the entire file structure to get these definitions. So that instead of making a rule that's going to say, it's like, hey, if we get 100 file encryptions within a couple of minutes, block whatever's doing that. With ransomware protection, we're actually going to be able to see that file drop in and say, okay, but this is malware, block it, don't let it do anything or execute any command. So we're going to be more proactive from a file server perspective and make sure that it actually doesn't damage any of the files on the file server. Security Central. So this was a big one for us. We have a product called Zybeam. Zybeam is a cloud cost governance tool, right? And basically we can point Zybeam to your different clouds, whether it be Azure, AWS, or GCP, and we can extract information from that and start saying, it's like, hey, we have virtual machines running either too big or too small. You can save money doing X or Y thing within this. Now, there was a second portion to Zybeam, right? And this was a security compliance component. The security compliance component is basically, again, when you pointed it to the cloud, you can say, okay, I have this bundle of VMs that has to be PCI compliant. This other bundle of VMs has to be HIPAA compliant. And it'll do about 200, 300 different checks on those to make sure that it actually is compliant. At .next, we announced that we're moving that security portion over into our Flow SKU. Flow, just so that you guys are aware, is our microsegmentation product. So if you're running AHV, we can add microsegmentation, which is an east-west firewall within your cluster. Now, as a part of that SKU with Flow, we're going to add Security Central, where basically you'll be able to point Security Central to your private cloud and say, it's like, look, these virtual machines need to be compliant with X compliance. Now, it's not predetermined, right? We do have, HIPAA compliance, SOX, PCI, and whatnot, but you can actually customize these to your own extent, right? If you have some certain checks that you want to do on your virtual machines, you can say, it's like, look, I want to add these checks to these certain virtual machines, and I want you to identify if there's something wrong with them at any time and give me an alert. So it's highly customizable. It is something that lives in the cloud, so this isn't something that you have to have running on-prem, but you can point it to your on-prem infrastructure, you can point it to your cloud infrastructure, and it'll give you those insights as well. Now, speaking of Flow, I would say, earlier this year when we would talk about Flow, we would specifically say, it's like, okay, this is a microsegmentation product. This is basically, we want to block out this pack of virtual machines from talking to this other pack of virtual machines, right? And we could block that. From a software-defined networking perspective, that was all that it can do, right? It wasn't a full software-defined networking product. We're changing that. We're going to probably go into early access at the end of this year, so make sure that you're in sync with your reps to make sure that you're aware of when this happens. But basically, we're going to turn this into a full software-defined networking solution. We're going to add in routing, VPNs, BGP, you name it, we're adding everything into that. But on top of that, we're also doing VPCs on-prem. So if you're familiar with cloud, right, you have infrastructure that's running on Amazon. You can take whatever your VPC is, right, and you put whatever IP address you want on there. For Amazon, from their perspective, right, they don't care what your IP address scheme is, right, within your VPC. Their underlying infrastructure has no clue what's going on within that VPC. They don't care. They have their IPs and you have yours. It doesn't matter if it overlaps or not, because that's yours. It's part of that multi-tenancy. We're bringing this to on-prem as well to help administrators basically say, it's like, look, we can create environments, right? And we have our underlying infrastructure, as a sysadmin, this has to be exactly how I need it. but we have other customers within our organization. We have developers and we have, you know, other engineers that may be doing different things. We're going to be able to kind of isolate those environments. So it's like, look, you can have these IP addresses. It doesn't matter if they overlap with these others in other VPCs, right? Because this is assigned to you specifically. So this is something that, you know, we're bringing that concept from the cloud, but we're also extending this to the cloud as well, right? So when you look at AWS and you have your VPCs over there and you're saying, okay, now I can do VPCs on Nutanix on premise, we're going to be able to actually migrate the definitions of those VPCs from one site to another, and also your virtual machines from one site to another. So basically you can say, it's like, look, all of these VMs that I have running on my on-prem VPC with Nutanix clusters on AWS, I want to take those virtual machines and just push them over to the cloud, and they'll just recognize that other VPC because they'll be talking to each other. They'll be in sync as well. So a lot of great things coming from a Nutanix Flow perspective. I'm actually pretty excited about this. You know, when we looked at Nutanix Flow and it was just doing microsegmentation, there was a lot of missed opportunity from my perspective. And now that we're actually building this into a full-fledged software-defined networking product, it's just a very exciting time for me, and I do love networking a lot, so it's great. Okay, Nutanix Central. So we have you know, our private cloud Nutanix that runs on Prism Element. Every cluster has Prism Element. We had a manager that would manage all of these clusters called Prism Central. Now, for larger customers that had multiple sites running multiple Prism Centrals, this is where it kind of got a bit tricky, right? Because basically you would say, it's like, look, I have to log into one Prism Central, let's say from this graph in Chicago, and then I would have to go to another Prism Central that's from New York, right? With Nutanix Central, we're making kind of like a cloud control plane where basically we can tie in all of these Prism Centrals and say, look, I can, you know, as like the top level admin, I can deploy applications to all of these clusters that are all over the globe in any data center using any Prism Central, but I can also manage and maintain them and check, okay, you know, how much disk space are they using? Are there enough resources? What's the capacity look like? You know, we're building in, you know, role-based authentication on this as well. So you might have some admins or junior admins that are like, look, you know, you can log into Nutanix Central, but you can only see all of my data centers that are on the West Coast. I have these other junior admins that can only see the ones that are on the East Coast. So this is huge. We've had a lot of larger customers asking us about having this cloud control plane. And it's, you know, you no longer have to worry about, okay, you know, I have my Prism Central running on my cluster, but I would like something outside of it. This is going to be the solution for that. Nutanix Calm. So Nutanix Calm is it's a DevOps product, right? So basically, you know, we can take instead of just virtual machine templates that you might be familiar with on vSphere and say like, okay, let's have this template to deploy a virtual machine or whatnot. With Nutanix Calm, we can actually take full-fledged environments, right? And we can predetermine what they're going to look like with something called a blueprint. And we'll say, okay, you're running Nutanix Calm. I want you to take this virtual machine template that's a database server and this other virtual machine template that's a web server. And I want you to start scripting out the installation for each of them, right? And create dependencies between both of these virtual machines to create a full environment. Then you can just assign it to people to, you know, double click and it's like, okay, here's your environment. We can build this up. Nutanix Calm, it resides on top of a Nutanix cluster. The big announcement for us in .next was basically like, look, you know, Calm is such a great product to be able to do this. You know, we want customers that are, you know, not necessarily running Nutanix on premise to be able to take advantage of this. So basically, we're going to put this in the cloud. It's going to be a software as a service. Any customer can sign up to this. And when they sign up, they'll be able to create their environments, their blueprints to whatever spec they want to. And they can say, okay, let's deploy this to 3-tier architecture running vSphere. Let's deploy this to AWS Cloud, or let's deploy this to, or on on-prem Nutanix, right? It really just opens up the opportunity for you as customers to say it's like, look, this isn't just an infrastructure play, right? We can also do this for our DevOps teams. Like, forget about what the infrastructure is. Here's a tool to build out your environments. It's a very highly capable product. We've been developing this for years now. It's tried and true. We have integrations with, Ansible, Jenkins, Puppet. So you might already have some tools built in for DevOps. We can plug into that as well and make sure that it runs. If you have a ticketing system similar to ServiceNow and you're like, okay, I want to build environments and my devs are already using ServiceNow, right? Okay, great. We can plug in an API into ServiceNow where they can double click, okay, I need this environment in ServiceNow, and it'll contact Calm and deploy that environment for them. So it's a very powerful tool that we're taking into the cloud. But one of our other tools as well, it's called Carbon. Carbon is a Kubernetes management system that we offer for free on premise, right? So if you are in Nutanix cluster, you can deploy Carbon at any time and start managing Kubernetes containers within your environment. Now, just like with Calm, this is great for customers that already have Nutanix on premise, but this is a very powerful tool. And as an organization, we're like, you know what, we want more people to, experience how easy it is to use this and how great of a tool it is. So we're building this, again, into the cloud, offering it as software as a service, where customers can choose where they want to deploy their Kubernetes clusters, right? If they want to do this on any of the clouds, on any bare metal that they might have on their on-premise sites, right? It doesn't just have to be Nutanix. So again, these are our two products that we're I guess you could say, disaggregating from our HCI solution and putting it into the cloud and offering it as SaaS. So in August, we announced our general availability of Nutanix clusters on AWS. So basically what we're doing is we're saying, it's like, look, if you have an AWS VPC, you have your accounts and you're like, okay, we want to test out what Nutanix can do with the cloud. Let's spin up a couple of bare metal instances, and with your Nutanix licensing, you could just apply the licenses to those bare metals on AWS and run a full environment of Nutanix. We're bringing Azure into the mix as well. So with Nutanix clusters on Azure, this is going to go into early access, hopefully by the end of November, early December. Customers are going to be able to do very similar to what we're doing in AWS, but the really cool thing is that we developed a really good relationship with Microsoft, and we're actually going to be in Microsoft's Azure's marketplace. So you don't have to worry about, having to figure out licensing. Okay, what do I do? Who do I contact? If you have your credits and you're acquiring your credits through, let's say, Winslow, you have your Azure credits. Oh, here's the marketplace. I see Nutanix. Let's start spinning up some of those licenses, and I'll just utilize those credits that we currently have for Azure. So that's going to be a big change, and it definitely helps lower that path of resistance to achieving what you want to achieve with Nutanix. Nutanix Era. So with Nutanix Era, we have a database platform, right? This is going to be a management virtual machine where we can take your Oracle databases, your SQL Server databases, and we say, like, look, let's start taking snapshots, and we'll do a time stream and make sure that we have consistency in your databases and that we can recover from them. But not only that, we can take those databases and start saying, it's like, look, I want to deploy a brand new database with the same schema that I have from an existing one, but I want to deploy this on best practices from Microsoft or best practices from Oracle, et cetera. Era will actually take control of that. It'll build out that virtual machine to best practices with SQL Server installed or Postgres or whatnot. So it does have that capability. We actually started introducing patch management for databases as well. So like if you have an Oracle environment that Era is monitoring and whatnot, it will look at the patches and it will assist you, right? And making sure that it can deploy those patches to that database server and obviously make sure that it's running correctly. From an announcement perspective, Nutanix Era, we're adding SAP HANA, which is a huge one for us as well. From a hyperconverged perspective, we were actually the first to be SAP HANA certified. This happened back in 2018, probably end of the year. So being able to add this into Air and say, it's like, look, not only can you run this very high performant database on top of our infrastructure, we can actually help you manage it as well. The other thing that we actually released this last week or the week before with Air 2.0 was multi-cluster. So before with Era 1.0, you had one Nutanix cluster, you had one Era just for that cluster. If you had a second cluster, you had to deploy another instance of Era and whatnot. So we've actually come to a point where it's like, okay, this is multi-cluster. You don't have to worry about multiple Nutanix Eras managing multiple databases. So it's again helping the customers have that ease of use with the databases and not have to manage multiple panes of glass, which is something that we're adamantly against. So from a summary perspective, right, and I know I spoke a lot, and Lucy, I don't know if we have any questions or whatnot so far, but we've had enhancements not only for our core hyperconverged infrastructure, but pretty much with every single product that we've put out. We're doing enhancements, we're building changes, and we're making sure that you as customers, right, are getting everything that you need from a Nutanix perspective, and you can have that enterprise cloud platform where it's not just, okay, I have my on-premise infrastructure and Nutanix helps me out with that, but that's just my infrastructure, that's nothing else. Well, from a Nutanix perspective, it's like we want to help you, we want to make sure that you can have that ease of use of your infrastructure where you don't have to worry about different expertise with different products. You don't have to worry about, if I learn about this and I have somebody else that I have to consult about something else, are we on the same page? Do we have to start pointing fingers when we have problems or whatnot? Nutanix is definitely trying to help out to make sure that you as customers, like, okay, our environment is, we have this holistic view of our entire environment. As a sysadmin, as an IT director or whatnot, I can have my people start focusing on, the applications that the business is running, right? Because at the end of the day, the end user is going to start asking, it's like, okay, why can't I get to my report, or why can't I utilize my system at this point? They don't care what the infrastructure is. We think that the IT admins shouldn't either. They should just say, it's like, look, we know it's working. We can see it from one single pane of glass. Let's start making sure that everybody can actually do their jobs and us provide more value to the company instead of just being seen as a cost center. So a couple of offers that came out of .next, right? Nutanix clusters on AWS, again, that was in general availability at the end of August. We offer a 60-day trial to all of our customers. So I advise all of you, if you do have AWS infrastructure, take it for a spin. We'll give you licenses for 60 days. Talk with Winslow. They have a lot of great engineers that can help you get up and running with that. I talked a little bit earlier about Beam and just pointing that to different clouds and looking at your cloud cost comparisons and whatnot. Again, 60-day trial. This is, excuse me. These are offers that we put out for .next. It's typically going to be either a 2-week trial, 14 days, or 30 days, depending on the product. We've extended these as a bonus during .next. So, take advantage of that. Go to my.nutanix.com, sign up. We have pretty much trials of all of our products. If you don't want to kind of sign up, you're hesitant about it or whatnot, we have on our website, nutanix.com/one-platform, this system that we're calling Test Drive is basically, we're going to provide every customer a small environment that's, a complete environment of Nutanix, where you can basically go through a wizard that's going to tell you, okay, click here, do this, do that, so that you can be familiar with how Nutanix operates. But not only that, you could actually X out of those wizards and say, okay, I just want to do whatever I want. Let's try to break this. Let's try to do something different. And we find this very valuable because it's not like, back in the day where you would go to a site and it's like, okay, test out our system. And they would give you this flash site where you had to specifically place the cursor on one spot and click it for the next thing to happen. No, this is a complete environment, right? That's built out specifically for you as a customer. There's nobody else going to be touching this while you're testing it out. The test drives last typically from 2 to 4 hours. You sign up with your email address, you'll get a link to log in and pretty much do whatever you want and learn about the system. And that is it from an update perspective from .next. I'm not sure if we have any questions in the Q&A, but if you do have any questions, please add them in there. It doesn't have to be specifically about anything that we spoke about today. If you do have questions, just type them in and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Yep, so Marco, we don't have any current questions right now, but again, thank you to our attendees. If you have any questions for Marco or Paul, please put them up in the Q&A function and we will address them.
Yep, and for everybody that's stuck around, listen to me talk tech for 40 minutes now. You know, Winslow was kind enough to say, it's like, look, we're going to send all of our attendees a $25 gift card. So, you know, thank you for sticking around until the end. And, you know, we'll leave this open for questions. Contact your Winslow reps, right? They are always willing to help. We have a great relationship with them, you know, not only in New England, but, you know, they have a New York City office, they're in North Carolina, they're in multiple places where, you know, they work very closely with our teams in those areas to provide the best customer service.
Thanks, Marco. And as a follow-up, we will also include some links to some of our on-demand content from .next if you would like to dig in a little deeper into what was presented. We will include those links. And yes, we will share the recording for everyone who joined late or would like to listen to it at a later time. Okay. We do have not so much a question, but a comment that our Nutanix product line has really matured. So thank you. We have a great technical team that has developed a lot of these product lines. So thanks for that comment.
Yeah.
We do have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Lucy.
Oh, sorry. No, I said we do have a question. It says, what features that you touched on today require no additional licenses?
That's a great question, actually. So it really depends on what product I was talking to. So let me get back here to the summary slide. So if we look at Run Better, right, and we look at Next Gen HCI, so Foundation Central, the Blockstore and SPDK, that's already part of the HCI. So these are things that are just part of our licensing at this point, right? If you're currently using files, so that's a different product and it's licensed separately. If you have files, when this update for ransomware and whatnot comes out, it'll just be included in your current files licensing. So this is typical for all of the products I mentioned. So if we go to Security Central, which is a part of Flow, if you have Flow licensing, this will just be included into that licensing. You won't have to step up into another tier of licensing within Flow, but you have to own that specific product. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you all for the questions. We will leave this open for a few more minutes, see if anyone else has any other questions. Double check the other. Okay. All right, we've got a great crowd out there. Let's not be shy. All right.
Yeah, it looks like we're good. I'm not sure if Paul
Yeah.
wants to add anything from Winslow's side, but thanks everybody for joining. And again, as I said, reach out to your Winslow rep, reach out to your Nutanix rep. Ask for demos, ask for people to show you what's going on within Nutanix. And again, as Tom mentioned, it's like our product has matured. We have a ton of things that we're doing. And this isn't kind of like beta products that we're turning out there. They're tried and true. We have lots of customers running these things, and we want to help everybody out with what they're trying to achieve in their environments.
Marco, thanks for the awesome presentation today. I do have one thing to add. I did not realize you were such a big Lord of the Rings fan. So I think in the spirit of that, if anyone's still on the line and to answer this question, we can probably do another $25 gift card. But if anyone can name what this sword is, because I'm also a huge Lord of the Rings fan and I have a Lord of the Rings sword collection. If anyone can name this, we can do another $25 gift card.
That's awesome.
So I'll just leave that there. But great job, Marco.
That's awesome. You actually surprised me with that, Paul. That's pretty cool.
I don't know if I should be scared or if I should be impressed.
Impressed. Definitely impressed.
I'm hoping impressed,
All right.
but likely.
All right. Well, this concludes our presentation for today. Thank you all for joining. And again, we will follow up with some links to some on-demand and also to the recording. If you have any other questions, please feel free to answer them right now. Otherwise, we will close the webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at another event.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everybody.